Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, released for the Nintendo 64 on November 23, 1998, was the first three-dimensional Zelda game. It's the fifth Zelda game created, and lore-wise, it's definitely the most important Zelda game. As in, if you've never played a Zelda game and want to know which game to start with, it's this one. Start with Ocarina of Time and most of the series suddenly makes a lot more sense. I'll start off by saying that Ocarina of Time is by far my favorite video game of all time. I can't think of any other game that I hold in higher regards, so I'm probably gonna sound a bit biased in this video, but this isn't a review. A little backstory. By the time Ocarina of Time was released, I was only 2 months old. Around the time I was 6, I had a neighbor with a Super Nintendo and a copy of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I would constantly go next door and watch him play, only to go home and tell my parents I watched him play Zelda. Now, I already owned an N64 for maybe a year at this point, and one day my dad just surprised me with a copy of Ocarina of Time. And not just any copy, it was one of those limited edition golden cartridges. I didn't realize how special that cartridge actually was until about 7 years later. That copy of the game actually still has the blasphemous Muslim chanting in the Fire Temple. If you have no idea what I just said, I'll leave a couple links in the description. A little overview of the game. You play as Link, a 10-year-old forest child who's given a fairy from the guardian of the forest, the Great Deku Tree. The Deku Tree enlists Link to save the land of Hyrule, and after a certain plot point in the game, you go from 10 years old to 17 years old. The game basically consists of you going through roughly 11 dungeons, collecting various items and weapons, slaying a bunch of monsters, all to eventually rescue the princess. There's plenty of optional side quests. They're definitely not required to enjoy the game, but like, why wouldn't you want to rescue a woman's chickens who have escaped from her corral only for her to give you a glass bottle and then tell you that she's allergic to chickens? I mean, frankly, I just don't understand. Now to a 6-year-old, the game didn't make much sense. But that didn't matter, it was just objectively fun to play and watch. The world was vast, the visuals were beautiful, the music got stuck in your head, of course I loved it. Speaking of the music, which I cannot recommend you listen to enough, here's a few examples. I'll leave a link to the full OST in the description if you're interested. Do yourself a favor, give it a listen. Now on top of all that, Nintendo re-released Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo GameCube on November 28, 2002. Along with the original game, the disc also contained Ocarina of Time Master Quest. Essentially, in Master Quest, the game goes unchanged outside of the dungeons, which were revamped in everything but layout. Think of it as Ocarina of Time's hard mode. Master Quest returns with a mirrored map in the Ocarina of Time's remaster on a Nintendo 3DS. Oh, by the way, Ocarina of Time was remastered for the Nintendo 3DS. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time 3D was released on June 16, 2011. It's the same game, just visually remastered, and it's just beautiful. But as beautiful as it is, and as great of a remaster as it is, I feel that the 3DS put an unnecessary limit on the game. A lot of people were excited at the idea that Ocarina of Time was now portable, but the Switch is also portable, and it's HD. I mean, the Wii U was in development by the time Ocarina of Time 3D was released, and while a lot of people forget this, the Wii U was also an HD console. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that more people would have wanted Ocarina of Time HD over a portable Ocarina of Time 3D. And if you're wondering how well the game did, it sold 2.5 million copies in 1998. Even though it was released only 39 days before 1999. It also earned $150 million in US revenues alone, higher than any Hollywood film in the last 6 weeks of 1998. And I know I'm not reviewing the game, but Here's Wikipedia's records of Ocarina of Time's review scores and awards. Can't say I don't agree. In summation, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time arguably shaped my childhood and its imagination. I owe a lot, if not most, of my creative ideas to Ocarina of Time. It's a feel-good game and it's worth the time you put into it. If you ever wanted to get into the Legend of Zelda series, definitely start with this game. I cannot recommend it enough. Thanks for watching.